Revealed, my amazing journey from being adopted to claiming my grandpa's $500,000 inheritance. Emily Greene wiped the counter at the diner for what felt like the thousandth time that day. The rain drizzled steadily outside, tapping against the window like a persistent reminder of her mundane existence. She could hardly recognize herself among the clatter of plates and murmuring customers, feeling like a shadow filtering through their conversations. Here she was, 25 and still stuck in the same small Ohio town, still just a waitress. But today, something felt distinctly different. Something loomed in her mind, a tension twisting like a coil in her gut. All began 2 weeks prior, when she received the news that would flip her world upside down. A letter from a lawyer, a distant grandfather she had never known, had left her an inheritance of $500,000. That sum felt enormous and absurd, glittering like a promise, yet it was accompanied by a flood of questions and fears that crashed over her like the relentless rain. Would claiming it mean leaving behind the only family she knew? Would it betray the parents who had nurtured her, who had taught her the values she held dear, the sweat of honest work? As the regulars shuffled in and out of the diner, chatting about their lives, their worries, their dreams, Emily listened with a heavy heart. What kind of dreams could she ever aspire to, living paycheck to paycheck? She could feel a weight settling on her chest, each flick of a bell over the door sending ripples of nerves through her thoughts. Will they think I'm a gold digger? Will they judge me for wanting more out of life? The voices in her head scolded her, a chorus of doubts crescendoing until they drowned out everything else. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The struggle engulfed her, consuming her focus as she caught a glimpse of herself in the diner's mirrored wall. She felt small, insignificant, like she was still that scared girl standing alone in a crowded room. The townsfolk whispered that she was just a shadow of her adopted family. Would she ever break free from that illusion? With the prospect of wealth hanging just beyond her fingertips, she felt suffocated by a mix of exhilaration and dread. And to complicate matters further, Jake Henderson, the local businessman who thrived on belittling her upbringing, had been making his presence known lately. He had laughed when he saw her snagging scraps under the counter, sneering about her ambitions. Could she confront the very man who exemplified her fears, holding her future in one hand and her legacy in another? Emily felt her heart race, the tension stretching taut as she twisted a dishcloth in her hands. It brought every feeling she wished to ignore to the surface, reminding her of the wavering path ahead. As she stood there grappling with the weight of her decision, Emily realized she was at a crossroads. The inheritance was not the end. It was merely the beginning. Would she have the courage to step into the light, to redefine what it meant to be Emily Greene? The air crackled with unresolved tension, and as her uncertainty solidified into a storm of emotions, she sensed someone taking notice. Her time was running out. As the last customer left the diner, the clinking of cups faded, leaving Emily with nothing but the echo of her own breath and the drumming of rain against the glass. With the din of chatter now silenced, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, to confront the chaos inside her. Thoughts ricocheted wildly about her grandfather, the inheritance, and the life she envisioned but never dared to pursue. What would it feel like to step into a world beyond this greasy diner and the expectations tethering her to it? With every heartbeat, a surge of determination unfurled within her. Emily approached the small office at the back of the diner, the faint smell of fried food still lingering in the air. She sat at her modest desk, cluttered with bills and receipts, absent-mindedly playing with a pen, contemplating her options. Claiming the inheritance could mean investing in her dreams, maybe even leaving this town behind. But the sacrifice loomed larger than the possibilities. She whipped out her phone, hesitating as she stared at the contact-labeled lawyer. Just a button press could set a series of events in motion, one that promised a new version of herself. Could she summon the courage to change the narrative that others had woven around her? The apprehension of that decision clawed at her, whispering doubts louder than before. The door creaking open interrupted her thoughts. Jake Henderson strolled in, a shark in a tailored suit, his confidence palpable, as if he owned the very air she breathed. "I would thought they'd finally give you a day off," he taunted, a smirk playing across his face. "Still waiting on that great opportunity you always talk about?" "Just finishing up, Jake," Emily replied curtly, clenching her fists under the table. Confronting him was a familiar, unwelcome dance, yet this time felt different. As she looked into his mocking eyes, something inside her sparked a flicker of defiance. "Why don't you do yourself a favor and find a real job?" he sneered, leaning against the doorframe. "With all your expectations, you'll be stuck here forever." A sudden boldness surged through her veins. "Maybe it's time for new expectations," she shot back, surprising even herself. Jake raised an eyebrow, momentarily caught off guard. "What is that supposed to mean?" Plotting her words carefully, Emily thought about everything she could be: an owner of a thriving business, a traveler, or perhaps someone being fulfilled instead of bound by fate. "I'm not rooted here. I can move forward," she declared, her voice steadier than she felt. The air turned electric as Jake's smirk faded, replaced by annoyance. The tension sat between them, taut and unyielding, and for the first time, Emily sensed an ounce of power in her voice, turning the tables in this power struggle. As he left the diner lingering with disbelief, Emily took a breath, feeling lighter, empowered even. Suddenly, the inheritance didn't feel like a burden trapping her legacy, but a lifeline to her own ambitions. She navigated through the emotions brewing in her mind, standing tall with the knowledge that she was actually willing to fight for her identity. Yet, that fight required clarity on what exactly she envisioned for her future. That night, as she lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, a singular thought anchored her down. She needed a plan. She needed to know herself beyond the labels that had been stitched onto her. Determined to find out who Emily Greene truly was, she committed to writing down her goals, a detailed blueprint for the woman she wanted to become. And then it hit her. If she faced her fears, if she stood up for her dreams, could it lead her to pursue her inheritance with confidence? Tomorrow, she would reach out to the lawyer. The moment of decision loomed. The only problem was the storm brewing inside her, still wrestling with the fears that had haunted her for years. As sleep took over, she asked herself the haunting but necessary question: what kind of person would she have to become to claim not just her grandfather's money, but the life and identity that came with it? The morning light filtered through the diner's frosted windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the stale air. Emily rolled over in bed, her pulse quickening as she recalled the promise she made to herself the night before. With the day stretching before her like an endless road, she knew it was time to act. She swung her legs over the side, the cool floor grounding her in a reality she was determined to change. As she got ready, each brushstroke of her mascara felt deliberate, a small act of rebellion against all that doubted her. She dressed in a simple but confident outfit, a nod to the woman she aspired to be. No more hiding in oversized sweatshirts that whispered of insecurity. Today, she would confront the future head-on. The diner hummed to life as she entered, and she settled into her routine almost automatically. Yet today felt different. Every cup she poured, every plate she served, became not merely a job but a reminder of the life she was ready to leave behind. The usual banter with regulars seemed muted, the laughter ringing hollow in her ears. The weight of her ambitions pressed heavily on her chest as she tried to focus. In the midst of the early morning chaos, the doorbell jingled, announcing her next visitor, her lawyer, Mr. Wilson. He walked in, briefcase in hand, radiating professionalism that seemed to amplify her own insecurities. Emily felt a wave of nausea wash over her as she thought about how her life could recalibrate in this very moment. "Good morning, Emily," he greeted cordially as he approached the counter, maintaining a respected distance, yet his presence felt overwhelming. "Are you ready to discuss your grandfather's estate?" She nodded, despite a tangle of nerves knotting in her stomach. "Yes, I've been thinking it over." The words spilled out before she could reassure herself. This was her moment. "I'm ready to move forward." "Excellent," he said, flipping through pages in his notebook. "We need to go over the specifics regarding the inheritance, including the potential benefits, risks, and how it might impact your financial future." As he spoke, Emily fought to suppress the tug of doubt threatening to crush her spirits. This wasn't just about money, it was a pathway to her freedom, to her identity. She focused intently, taking mental notes, but the undertones loomed a fear of commitment. Did claiming the money mean she would have to embrace a new, untested version of herself? "What are your plans after the inheritance?" Mr. Wilson asked, looking up. His gaze was piercing, demanding an answer. Emily hesitated, thoughts racing. Did she even have a plan? It hadn't fully crystallized yet, but what if she did? Sharp clarity cut through her hesitation. "I want to start my own business," she declared, surprise rippling through her. "I've dreamed of opening a café that reflects my passions: healthy meals, a bookshare corner, community events, something that brings people together." A flicker of appreciation flashed in Mr. Wilson's eyes. "That's ambitious. But have you thought about market research? Business plans?" Her pulse quickened with the enormity of the undertaking. "I'll figure it out," she blurted. The words tasted unfamiliar, but empowering. The intoxicating taste of initiative cracked open old paralyzing fears. "We should outline a plan before you touch the inheritance. You need a clear strategy," Mr. Wilson pushed, a touch of hesitancy lingering in his words. Suddenly, the walls of the diner, her cage, felt even more pronounced. "I can do this. I need to do this," she insisted, her voice steady now, fueled by an adrenaline rush. Each letter of the phrase brought an affirmation of her future. As the meeting continued, the groundwork for her aspirations began to unfurl before her: a chance for survival as an entrepreneur, a chance to be defined by her choices, not her circumstances. The options began to overwhelm, but in an exhilarating way. The fear that had loomed like a specter began to shrink in the face of possibility. The meeting concluded, and Mr. Wilson left with a practiced nod, but Emily remained in her own thoughts, the burden of previous expectations dissipating. She was no longer the girl confined by the diner's walls or her past. The foundations for her new life were laid before her, but there were still profound decisions ahead. As she cleaned up after the breakfast rush, she felt the echo of something unknown: a fear that if she truly embraced this new path, she would have to face the chaos of doubt plotting against her. She stepped outside, letting the cool breeze brush against her skin. This was just the beginning. She needed not just the inheritance, but the courage to navigate the trials ahead. What if the superficial harm lay not in the claim itself, but the ominous voices of doubt inside her head, daring her to falter? The next step would be vital. She had to confront Jake again. This time, it wouldn't be a power struggle, it would be a stand for who she was becoming. Would she find the strength to show him the new Emily Greene? Emily stood outside the diner, the brisk air rousing her senses, but the anticipation of the day ahead held her trapped in her thoughts. She had been coasting along for so long, driven by circumstance rather than choice. Today would be different. She felt it deep in her bones. There was a promise wrapped in uncertainty, and she couldn't ignore the pull toward transformation. With her resolve steeled, she pulled out her phone, fidgeting as she considered the number she had memorized. Jake. The name buzzed with memories of laughter, complications, and the heartache of their relationship. They hadn't spoken since the heated argument about her future, his skepticism like a stone lodged in her throat. But this time would be different. She wasn't the same girl who had taken his disapproval lying down. "Just call him," she muttered to herself, the words heavy with determination. After a few deep breaths, she pressed the call button. Each ring stretched into eternity until Jake finally answered, his voice laced with unexpected warmth. "Emily?" "Hey, Jake." "I need to talk," she replied, feeling a mix of vulnerability and resolve surge through her. "Can we meet?" "Sure, what's up?" "I want to share my plan," she responded, an edge of excitement propelling her words. "Can we get coffee later?" "Okay. I'll see you at our usual place in an hour." See you there. Clicking off the call, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline. She had always sought validation from Jake, but in this moment, it didn't matter as much. She was charting her path, one step at a time, arriving at the coffee shop. She let the aroma of roasted beans fill her lungs, grounding her purpose. Picking a corner table, she watched as patrons bustled about, each one caught up in their own little labyrinth of hopes and fears. In a way, they were all striving for something greater simply by showing up. When Jake walked in, a knot reformed in her stomach. He looked as casual as always, yet there was a new distance between them. She forced herself to smile, hoping to drown out the cacophony of doubt that threatened to pull her under. Thanks for coming. Of course. You sounded serious, he replied, taking a seat. What's on your mind? Inheritance. I'm going to claim my grandfather's estate, she said, feeling the weight of truth in her words. I want to open my own café. Jake's expression shifted, skepticism wrapping around him like armor. A café? Is that really the best use of that money? What is your plan? In that moment, her thoughts splintered. She could feel his doubt seep into her confidence like a slow poison. I believe in a vision of community, a space for people to gather. It matters to me, she asserted, leaning forward. I've thought about this. I'll do the research, write the business plan, Emily. It's not that simple, he interjected. Running a business requires knowledge and skill you don't have. This isn't just about wanting it. Do you really want to risk everything? The question hovered like a specter, raising a question she hadn't fully addressed. Was she risking her security for a dream? She inhaled sharply, her conviction faltering for a moment. Yet the thought of stepping back left her hollow. Every insecurity she had ever harbored rushed in with a vengeance, whispering that she would fail. But she refused to let them gain control. No, she replied firmly. It's about more than just me. I need to redefine what success looks like for me. I want to be the architect of my life, Jake. His eyes softened. I get that. But transforming a dream into a reality might tear you apart. Maybe, she admitted, the truth ringing heavy. But if I don't try, then I will always wonder what could have been. Will you support me, or at least believe in me as I take this leap? Jake fell silent, and in that moment, words became less critical than the glimmer of understanding flickering in his gaze. Amidst the dampened doubt, it felt like a crack of light piercing the darkness of her fears. Later, as they parted ways, determined and in control, Emily thought about the road ahead. She wouldn't just inherit a café. She would be claiming her identity. The air buzzed with the electricity of possibility. As she walked away, her heart raced with anticipation and challenge alike. She had dealt with doubt today, and the confrontation had only fueled her desire to proceed. Yet, lurking within the exhilaration, a new worry began to emerge. Self-doubt remained her fiercest adversary. How would she silence the voices when they creeped in, lurking just over her shoulder? If she was going to succeed, she needed to confront that darkness head-on. The time was coming for a deeper self-examination, one that would define not just her venture, but her very essence. Would she uncover the resilience burning beneath the surface, or would uncertainty shadow her every move? As the days wore on, Emily found herself enveloped in a whirlwind of tasks and emotions. Her initial excitement about opening her cafe evolved into a complex tapestry woven with anxiety, eagerness, and a stubborn resolve to challenge every shadow of doubt that dared to creep into her mind. Each morning was a ritual of self-affirmation. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror, she whispered her commitment to herself. You can do this. You will do this. After leaving that fateful meeting with Jake, she had poured her energy into researching everything there was to know about running a cafe. The more she read, the more she realized how little she knew. Every article highlighted the importance of business acumen, financial management, and customer service. Concepts that had once felt distant now loomed over her like an insurmountable mountain. It was staggering, yet invigorating. That realization sparked relentless questions. Was heart and passion enough, or did she need formal training? A mixture of fear and excitement lurked in the recesses of her mind. Every moment poured into her research felt like an investment in herself, but self-doubt knotted her stomach with accusations of inadequacy. To combat her uncertainties, Emily sought out resources in her community. Community college courses on entrepreneurship flashed on her screen like beacons of hope. She signed up for a business management course, determining it would give her the foundation she desperately needed. Yet amid her determination, there was a nagging whisper: what if you don't succeed? What if you're wasting your time? The first class was a cacophony of voices and ideas, all more experienced than her. Each student brought their own narratives of ambition, sparking a mixture of intimidation and an unexpected kinship. Emily found herself engaging in discussions with newfound friends, swapping dreams and fears like contenders in a gladiatorial arena of ambition. As the weeks flowed into one another, she marveled at the evolution of her ideas. The café had transformed in her mind, evolving from a simple dream to a unique vision that melded intention with innovation. She envisioned a space filled with local art, heirloom recipes, and a warm corner where strangers could become friends. The thought coursed through her veins like lifeblood, the strength in vulnerability wrapped in passion. However, she wasn't naive. The world of business would demand more than whimsical ideas and starlit dreams. One evening, sitting at her kitchen table surrounded by scribbled notes and half-drunk cups of coffee, Emily confronted a harsh reality. She needed concrete plans and financial estimates, a business proposal that could withstand the scrutiny of potential investors or banks. That part felt daunting. The numbers danced in her mind, unyielding and foreign. "You need help," she muttered, irritation bubbling beneath her skin. Swallowing her pride, she sought out mentors, individuals who had taken similar leaps. Networking events became her new evenings, where she practiced the art of talking about her vision to anyone who would listen. The tension of vulnerability surged within her as she expressed her passion, sometimes stammering, often invigorated by the feedback that both shined light on her blind spots and ignited the fire of her resolve. Amid this cocoon of growth, Jake reached out. Their conversations, filled with his curiosity and unexpected support, provided a tether to her past that she desperately needed. He hadn't expected her change. He found inspiration in her tenacity. Yet, something shifted in Emily. With every confidence gained, the dynamic of their relationship felt like shifting sand. She was no longer merely the girl seeking his approval. She was becoming her own person. As she navigated this evolution, she faced a stark realization. Her transformation was as much about claiming her identity as it was about the café. The thought lingered like a distant echo. Who was she really, without her past insecurities? Yet the tension of her inner battle persisted. What lay ahead was both exhilarating and terrifying. Each day she took a step closer, the weight of expectation loomed larger. Would ambition lead her upward, or would it ultimately betray her? Every revelation sparked further questions within her. Just as a storm prepares to unveil its full strength in the distance, Emily sensed that a pivotal confrontation awaited, a test that would challenge every ounce of her newfound resolve. Would she be able to face the part of herself that still feared failure, or would it hold her hostage when it mattered most? The clamoring voices of uncertainty re-emerged like specters in the night, lurking behind her ambitions. It was clear that the day she would have to confront them was closing in fast, propelling her toward a truth she had yet to unearth. Emily's head buzzed with thoughts as she left her last class of the week. The discussions had been lively, with peers dissecting their business ideas while offering constructive critiques infused with excitement and fervor. Yet, as invigorating as those exchanges were, they also spotlighted her weaknesses, areas she desperately needed to address. The classroom had become a fine line between inspiration and imposter syndrome, wavering precariously with every word spoken. She had spent countless hours drafting a business proposal for her café, meticulously piecing together a vision that felt as tangible as the worn notebook she carried everywhere. The draft was filled with dreams, detailed menus, and a vibrant ambience that echoed her identity. Yet as her instructor's critical assessment loomed large in her mind, doubt gnawed at her. Would investors see the same magic she felt, or would they dismiss her vision as naive idealism? Late into the night, Emily found herself pacing her apartment, grappling with the nebulous concept of her future. While her heart ached to pull the trigger on her dreams, her mind lashed out at her with caution. The weight of the proposal felt heavier each night, a constant reminder that mere dreams needed solid plans. As she planted her feet on the ground, she understood that assessments of her past led directly to the fears she held about her future. Determined to flip the script, she pulled out her laptop and revisited her numbers, which had always seemed like an unfriendly riddle. The thresholds of profitability, operational costs, and pricing strategy lay before her like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Every figure she reviewed spoke to larger narratives, each number an embodiment of potential failure or success. With every keystroke, she tried to push away the specters of self-doubt that loomed like dark clouds over her ambitions. "Focus, Emily," she whispered to herself, the mantra she had adopted more fervently lately. She set short-term goals, figuring out her startup costs, calculating monthly expenses, and talking to someone in the industry about funding options. It was time she stopped being paralyzed by possibilities. If her journey was to be authentic, she needed to step outside her comfort zone further than she had before. As days transformed into weeks, she forced herself to reach out beyond her newly forged network. She attended workshops and met with financial advisors. Each meeting felt like a double-edged sword. While they were rich with information, they also cut into her self-esteem when she grappled with not understanding terms or asking seemingly naive questions. Still, she pressed on, determined to absorb every morsel of advice. In the maze of this newfound determination, she struck a vital chord within herself: perseverance. It came alive in the small moments, like when she expertly navigated a question about cash flow in one of her meetings, or felt the satisfaction of neatly organizing her financial spreadsheets. The realization struck her she wasn't merely fighting her fears. Instead, she was cultivating knowledge, honing her abilities, unlocking pieces of herself that had long remained dormant. Yet, lurking at the edge of this newfound growth was yet another confrontation she couldn't avoid: Jake. Their latest conversation had left her uneasy. He had dropped hints of his plans to return home after the summer, and though she had shifted her mindset, she still hesitated to unleash the full spectrum of her transformation on him. His view of her felt so deeply rooted in the past. Could he see her as a new person, one who didn't require validation from him? Each encounter left her feeling tethered to dual identities: one, the girl he'd known; the other, the emerging entrepreneur who saw possibilities in every obstacle. Emily understood that she would soon have to clarify this dynamic. The thought made her heart race with both excitement and fear. As Emily prepared for the next round of feedback on her proposal, she felt a tension mounting, a strong sense that the moment of truth was drawing near. The culmination of her efforts and fears was right before her, and she wondered, was she truly ready to present her vision to the world and to face the truth about her identity as it intertwined with Jake's expectations? The path ahead was unclear, shrouded with yet another confrontation that could either solidify her resolve or unravel her progress completely. In the growing silence of her apartment, she could sense it: everything was about to change. Would the person she had become stand strong against the echoes of who she once was? Emily's hands trembled slightly as she sat at her kitchen table, staring at her proposal, now filled with statistics, operational plans, and a clearer narrative. Each iteration had peeled back layers of confusion, revealing a more coherent vision that was surprisingly thrilling. But now, anxiety curled tightly in her stomach like a vine, feeding off her uncertainties. The impending feedback loomed like a dark cloud, ready to burst at the slightest touch. Her evening routine had shifted. Where once she might have indulged in comforting distractions, she'd forged a new habit: reviewing her proposal, seeking clarity and insight until exhaustion finally claimed her. Keeping focused while her mind raced was a task unto itself, and the fine line between anxiety and determination became her constant companion. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. This time, she wouldn't let the anxiety overwhelm her, yet her mind flickered back to Jake. They had shared moments that were carefree, embedded with warmth and laughter. But now, those memories sometimes felt like a shackle, anchoring her to an identity she was trying to redefine. If she were to move forward with the intensity her aspirations demanded, she would need clarity of purpose. Could she present this new version of herself to him? He would need to understand not just her ambitions, but the journey she had undertaken. She felt a surge of resolve as she pulled out her phone and typed a message to Jake. "Can we meet? I want to talk about something important." Immediately, a wave of regret washed over her. Was she being too hasty? They hadn't even discussed serious topics lately, focusing instead on trivial banter. What would she say? How could she convey the weight of her transformation without falling back on their shared history? She hesitated, her finger hovering over the send button. But the urgency of her thoughts propelled her forward. There was no turning back now. Sending the message felt like jumping off a cliff, exhilarating yet terrifying. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins as she settled back into her work, distractedly perfecting her pitch for the proposal presentation. The imagery of her café, rich with eclectic decor and an inviting atmosphere, danced in her mind, bringing her a sense of clarity amidst the chaos. She envisioned herself surrounded by customers, laughing and enjoying the space she had created that felt attainable. Yet, she couldn't shake the oppressive weight of Jake's influence hanging overhead. As the minutes ticked by, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the window. The woman looking back was different. She held an intensity that scared her. It was fueled by the culmination of her efforts, the late nights, the coaching sessions. This was her moment to step into the light and claim her narrative. A chime broke her contemplation, Jake's response arriving with unexpected speed. "Sure, let's meet tomorrow after class." Her heart raced. Tomorrow. Could she really convey the essence of her journey in one sitting? She spent the rest of the night wrestling with potential scenarios, running through dialogues in her head, dissecting every possible reaction he might have. Would he embrace her transformation, or would he challenge her, placing their history back on the pedestal she desperately wished to remove? The uncertainty hung like an anchor, weighing her down amidst the burgeoning excitement. As she prepared herself to sleep, all of Emily's ambitions flashed before her. The impending proposal, the meeting with Jake, the raised eyebrows of potential supporters. She wondered how he would react, and as dawn broke through her window, her resolve solidified. She would present herself as the entrepreneur she had become, one who no longer relied on anyone else's validation. The clock ticked closer to her appointment, each second a reminder of the undeniable truth. She was stepping into uncharted territory. Before she knew it, she found herself standing at the campus café, the dynamic energy of students enveloping her. Faced with a choice. To flirt with the familiar or stride confidently into a new beginning, she forced herself to focus. Her journey was leading her toward this moment she could not falter. As she spotted Jake from a distance, engaged in a conversation with a classmate, her breath hitched. Would they navigate this delicate balance of past and present, or was she about to discover something about herself she had yet to confront? Finalizing her thoughts, she felt the curious thrill of change on the horizon. As nervous excitement coursed through her veins, she was ready to face him, ready for the confrontation that could redefine their entire relationship. But with each step toward him, a new question emerged, swirling in her mind. Would she uncover the validation she sought, or would she need to find it within herself? Emily hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding as she crossed the threshold towards Jake. With each calculated step, she could almost hear the cacophony of her thoughts drowning out the lively chatter around her. This was a moment of reckoning, a theatrical crossroad where two versions of her coexisted, the girl tethered to memories and the woman daring to redefine her future. As she approached, Jake's eyes caught hers. She noticed the way his playful demeanor shifted as he read the determination etched across her face. "Hey, he greeted, a smile breaking over his features. It was a familiar comfort, but as she stepped closer, the weight of his exuberance felt strangely mismatched to her internal storm. "Hi, Jake," she replied, forcing a smile that felt hollow. They exchanged brief pleasantries, but Emily understood this wasn't the time for the usual banter. With urgency nagging at her, She plunged into the heart of her intentions. "Can we sit down? There's something important I want to discuss." She guided him toward a quieter corner of the café, her pulse quickening as she settled into a chair. Jake gave her a quizzical look, sensing the shift in atmosphere. The nerves in her stomach twisted tighter, and as she locked eyes with him, her heart raced on the brink of bursting free. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. But she could hear the unspoken question lurking beneath. What changed? Drawing a deep breath, Emily summoned the courage she had harnessed for months. "I've been working on a proposal for a café. I want to start my own business." The words flowed out like a statement of defiance against the fear that had once held her back. For a moment, Jake just stared. She watched as his reaction flickered between surprise and interest. "Wow, I didn't know you were interested in that world," he said, arching an eyebrow. "What changed?" The question seemed deceptively simple, but bore the weight of her transformation. "I've undergone a lot of self-reflection," she admitted. "I realized I want more than what I've been doing. I don't want to be just the girl people expect me to be. I want to create something real." "I thought you were happy working where you are," he responded cautiously, the skepticism in his voice both familiar and unsettling. But she could see the curiosity sparking behind his guarded expression. "That's just it, Jake. It's not about what's easy or what people expect. I want to take risks, real ones." The rhythm of her heartbeat matched her rising intensity, urging her to dig deeper. "I'm tired of worrying how I fit in others' expectations. I need to claim my own path." Jake didn't respond immediately. The silent space felt heavy. Emily watched him grapple with the impact of her words, hoping her confidence would translate into understanding. But tension crackled between them, hinting at unanswered echoes from their shared past. "What about us? If you pursue this, what does that mean for what we have?" He leaned back, frowning. The vulnerability in his voice pierced through her bravado. The question struck a nerve, igniting her uncertainty. Could their relationship withstand this shift? More importantly, did she need his approval to define herself? The memory of the girl who once sought comfort in his reassurances loomed large, but Emily clung to the newer version of herself, forged in the fires of ambition. "I think it means you'll see more of the person I was meant to be." She steadied her gaze, ensuring he felt the weight of her commitment. "This isn't just about me moving forward. It's about finding the confidence to shed a part of me that's held me captive." Jake watched her closely, his expression turbulent, reflecting the internal conflict unraveling just below the surface. Could he embrace her evolution without feeling threatened? "I need you to understand, Jake," Emily pressed on, determined to bridge the gap between past and future. "I'm not asking for you to validate this. I'm asking for you to trust that I'm ready to step into the uncertainty for myself." The silence that followed was suffused with possibilities, the two worlds coalescing at the crossroads of their relationship. She could feel the strands of her identity fraying and weaving anew, but just as clarity began to surface, Jake's hesitation fostered another layer of tension. What would he choose to believe? The fear that change would sever their connection, or the potential for a deeper understanding? As time hung suspended between their unspoken revelations, Emily realized the most inherent theme of her journey had yet to reveal itself: the necessity to claim her independence. Not just as an entrepreneur, but as a woman ready to embrace her right to redefine every aspect of her life. With connected breaths, they existed in that moment, both on the verge of a monumental shift. But uncertainty lurked in the background. Would this encounter strengthen their bond or fracture it irreparably? As Emily awaited his response, a fresh wave of determination coursed through her veins. No matter the outcome, she wouldn't allow herself to retreat into the shadows. But with those thoughts swirling in her mind, the next question became apparent. How far was she willing to go for her vision, and would she stand firm if it meant reshaping every relationship, including the one with Jake? Emily's heart raced as she attempted to decipher the myriad emotions playing out in Jake's eyes. The silence stretched, and in that moment, she felt the full weight of implications settling around them. The cafe buzzed around them, but she was suspended in a bubble of doubt and determination. "Emily," Jake finally said, his voice low but steady, I think you're capable of a lot, but starting a business is a huge leap. It takes more than just ambition. Have you considered the risks? His question hung in the air, thick with concern yet laced with an unintentional acknowledgement of her growth. He cared, but his protective instincts felt stifling as she fought against the tightening grip of his expectations. I get it. I haven't taken this lightly, she said, willing herself to project the confidence she felt brewing within. I've put in the research. That's why I'm here. I want your support as I step into this. The vulnerability surfacing in her voice was unmistakable, yet she fought against the urge to pull back, to backtrack. For years, Emily had hidden behind her safety net. Now she stood naked in her ambition, stripped of pretense. I've been thinking about it for months. I know what it takes, and I'm ready to start. Ready? Jake countered, leaning forward, his hands resting on the table in a gesture of earnestness that made her feel simultaneously grounded and unsettled. But what if it doesn't work? What if you lose everything? You've got a stable job, a routine, things that are known. This idea of yours, it could change everything. Are you truly prepared for that? His words sliced through her bravado, but rather than retreating into self-doubt, they ignited a simmering resolve. That's exactly it. I've been living in the shadows for too long. Stability is just code for stagnation. I'm ready to give myself a chance to thrive, even if that means facing failure. A rush of clarity washed over her. While fear held its persuasive grip on her thoughts, she recognized its role was to fuel, not to inhibit. Her pulse quickened at the thought of the possibilities ahead. As she said those words, Emily became aware of a newfound strength settling in her chest. Jake ran a hand through his hair, the natural admission of stress. But what about us, Em? What if you go down this path and I'm not part of it? Uncertainty loomed once more, but this time it sparked a fire rather than extinguishing it. I don't want to lose you, but I can't hold back for fear of it. I want to let the unknown dictate my choices. A sense of urgency swept through Emily as she leaned in, her resolve now a raging tide. I want you to believe in me as I believe in myself. I'm looking to build something that isn't just a business, it's a reflection of who I am. If we're meant to be a team, I need to know you'll stand by me as I forge this new path. Jake's brow furrowed as he considered her impassioned plea, caught between fear and pride. Emily could see the wheels turning in his mind. This could either be the moment they found common ground or the fissure that would split them apart entirely. As the weight of their connection hung heavily in the air, Emily felt a flicker of hope. In her vulnerability, she found empowerment, the realization that being a woman of ambition didn't require the validation of others. Taking a deep breath, she tipped the balance. I don't want to be defined by our past. I'm ready to take risks, to embrace challenges, to create my own narrative. Jake remained silent, the tension palpable. Would he rise to this challenge and allow her to flourish, or would he clench tightly to fears of losing her? The unspoken resolution in that moment echoed loudly. Emily understood she was standing at a precipice, not just regarding her aspirations, but in her relationship with Jake, a convergence, less about separation and more about mutual growth. But as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, Emily knew one truth: her journey was only beginning. First, she had to confront every whisper of doubt, and next, engage with the uncertainty that came with unleashing her potential. With the stakes rising, she grappled internally with the biggest question of all: would she emerge unchanged if she succeeded, or redefine herself through the challenges ahead? Would Jake be a part of that evolution, or would he remain an anchor, weighing her down? As uncertainty and determination collided, a new vision of her future began to crystallize. The question was now no longer about whether she could pursue her dreams, but how much she was willing to sacrifice, ensuring those dreams were realized. Weeks blossomed into months, and Emily Greene found herself not just on the cusp of claiming her inheritance, but standing firmly at the helm of her newly founded café, the Green Spoon. Each morning was filled with the rich scent of fresh coffee and the sweet aroma of pastries, as she prepared to welcome customers into a space that not only served food, but also fostered community and connectedness. The cafe was a melting pot of ideas, dreams, and flavors, a culmination of her vision interlaced with the many lessons learned during her journey. She meticulously designed the menu, drawing from her childhood memories while respecting the aspirations she had nurtured. Healthy fare met indulgent treats, and each dish echoed the harmony she desired to create. With the cafe thriving, Emily had forged connections with local farmers and artists, providing a platform for their talents that often went unnoticed. Every wall proudly displayed the work of emerging artists, turning her cafe into a vibrant gallery. The tables became communal meeting spots where conversations sparked between strangers, creating a tapestry of stories that reflected the essence of her mission. But this success came not without its challenges. As she navigated the intricacies of entrepreneurship, she frequently confronted hiccups, financial strains, staffing shortages, and the indomitable task of keeping customers engaged. Each setback tested her resolve, but those moments served as lessons rather than roadblocks. She learned the art of pivoting, adapting her approach with newfound confidence. Reflecting on her initial worries, Emily realized that what once consumed her thoughts, self-doubt, fear of judgment, had transformed into the driving forces behind her resilience. She was no longer just a waitress stuck in a diner. She was now an entrepreneur who invigorated her community and inspired others to follow suit. Jake's lingering scrutiny had faded into a fleeting cloud, and to her surprise, their conversations had shifted from skepticism to genuine curiosity. Jake visited the cafe regularly, and their discussions had undergone a metamorphosis. No longer stifled by uncertainty and doubt, Emily openly shared her challenges and victories, and he listened, intrigued by her evolution. Each shared moment solidified their connection, transitioning from one where he clung to the past to recognizing her as a dynamic partner chasing her dreams. With the cafe's success, Emily felt a surge of solid confidence, proving to herself that her venture was more than just a business. It was a manifestation of her identity. One afternoon, she stood behind the counter, bustling through the lunch rush, when a customer approached with a familiar face, one of her classmates from community college. "Emily, you've done it. This space is incredible." The words washed over her like a warm embrace, infusing her with a sense of fulfillment. Moments later, a local publication reached out to feature her story, a definitive recognition she had long yearned for. The cover story celebrated her journey, illuminating the transformation from uncertainty to empowerment. It was a testament to her hard work, proving that she had conquered not only her endeavors, but also her innermost fears. As the pages of her story turned, Emily stood in the center of her cafe one evening, bathed in the soft light of closing hours. Each corner reflected her growth, the art on the walls resonating with her aspirations, her laughter curling around the scent of brewed coffee in the air. She had stepped into her narrative, a woman claiming her space in a world that once felt confining. Satisfaction coursed through her veins, knowing that she had transcended the labels that once defined her. The inheritance was more than just money. It had propelled her into the life she was meant to lead, igniting a fire within that had previously flickered beneath layers of self-doubt. Each challenge she overcame reinforced her belief in her capabilities, her dreams no longer tethered to fear, but soaring into a future full of promise. Emily Greene had transformed from a shadow into a beacon, an established entrepreneur, and a woman who embraced every facet of her identity. The cafe hummed with laughter, camaraderie, and good food, reflecting her journey of overcoming limitations, amplifying her spirit into a space meant for creation, joy, and connection. The door swung open as a familiar jingle echoed through the air. Emily glanced up, heart swelling as she saw Jake enter, a smile breaking across his face. "Hey, I brought you something." In his hands lay a bouquet of fresh flowers, bursting with color just like the life she had cultivated. "Perfect timing. Just finished a great meeting with a local supplier," she divulged, pride flooding her words. The cafe buzzed with energy, mirroring the excitement of their shared connection. "This place feels alive," Jake smiled, stepping closer. "It's incredible to see how far you've come. I'm proud of you, Em." The weight of his acknowledgement was transformative. Thanks, Jake. I couldn't have done it without confronting every fear that once held me back, she revealed, vulnerability blending with strength, and in that moment, they both understood that the threshold between who they had been and who they had become was no longer a chasm, but a bridge, a shared understanding of growth, not just between friends, but a deeper respect for the journeys they each had embarked upon. Are you ready for the next adventure? Jake asked, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Absolutely. But this time, it's about us growing together, not apart. And with that umbrella of shared hope, Emily stepped forward into a future that beckoned with promise, fully embracing her identity, ready for whatever came next. Now, as you sit here reflecting on Emily's incredible transformation, remember that you too can take charge of your narrative. The journey of personal achievement awaits. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Real supporters of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.